Ciao a tutti. This is Prof Jo at Prof Jo Explains, and this is the recap show, which I'm doing earlier because the verdict came in before lunch, and so I thought, I might as well wrap up while it's still fresh. So, justice has been served. That was a text that Anna Walsh's sister sent the prosecutor. And those 4 words capture it all. So let's all watch the clip of the jury coming in with the verdict. Those of you who were there watching the trial this morning, it's nice to see it again. Those of you who didn't see it, this is the best part of the trial.
Remain standing. Everyone else in the courtroom may be seated.
I love him. I love that announcement.
Yeah, it's old school.
Your Honor,
It
may I
is.
inquire?
You may.
Mr. Foreperson, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Brian Walshe, have the deliberating jury unanimous verdict?
We have.
Thank you, sir. If you could hand that to the court officer, please.
This man's life hangs in the balance. I can never imagine being in this position right here. Whew.
Looks very calm, doesn't he?
Your Honor, may the verdict be recorded.
It may.
Mr. Foreperson, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Brian Walshe, Norfolk Superior Court Criminal Indictment Number 2023-0091. As to count 1, wherein the defendant Brian Walshe is charged with murder in the first degree, what say the jury? Is the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Guilty of what, sir?
Murder in the first degree.
Murder in the first degree, so say you, Mr. Foreperson.
I do.
Guilty of murder in the first degree, so say all deliberating jurors.
I do.
Thank you. If you could hand that back to the court officer, please.
This guy would move to poll the jurors.
So we were
Jury may
right.
be polled.
Yeah, we don't need to hear the polling. They all said guilty. They all said guilty in very firm, clear voices, no hesitation, no quiver, no quiet response, all loud, all firm, all clear. And so guilty of first-degree murder, premeditated murder, which carries a life sentence without parole in Massachusetts. So let me talk about a couple of the things that came up before I talk a little about what happened this morning. The victim impact statements and sentencing will be on Wednesday, we believe at 9 a.m. So we'll be going live, again, co-streaming with Surviving the Survivor at 9 a.m. in the morning. We don't know who will be providing victim impact statements, but my guess is it will be Anna's sister in Canada. Hopefully her mother in Serbia will be able to provide a statement. I don't know if she'll need a translator. I don't know how good her English is. And then the 2 counts illegally moving the body, which now that Brian Walshe has been convicted of first-degree murder, carries a maximum sentence of 20 years. Then the other count to which he pled was lying to law enforcement, and I believe that carries a maximum sentence of 5 years. The judge said she wants to hear the victim impact statements before she decides on the sentence. My guess is she will sentence him to the maximum 20 years on the moving the body and run it consecutively to the murder 1 conviction, in part because she sat the trial and heard all this horrific evidence, watched him nonchalantly, running to the store and involving the kids and lying to law enforcement twice and never disclosing where the body is. And in part because if by some, chance of fate, which I don't expect, the murder 1 conviction is overturned on appeal, then he will be guilty of murder 2. That's the lesser included, all the elements of murder one. All the elements of murder two are contained in murder one, so you can just move to the murder two, because they couldn't have convicted of murder one had they not agreed to all the elements that are in murder two. But murder two is 15 years to life, and it's not no parole. So running them consecutively in the unusual eventuality that the murder one conviction is reversed on appeal would still ensure an extremely long sentence. So that's what I think she will do. We will go more into what the sentence will be and what will happen at the sentencing hearing on Wednesday after we've seen it. So I want to now go into what happened today. As we said, and as you heard the jury say, it was a murder one conviction. Last Friday, the jury had sent out a question asking to see a photograph of Anna Walshe. I believe it was Anna Walshe on the rug. It might have been that bloody rug with the little necklace piece showing. I don't know which, because the judge never said which photograph they were talking about, and you had to try to figure it out. Either way, it was clear that the jury was focusing on that rug and on, therefore, the Commonwealth's case that she was killed on that rug. The blood got on the rug, nowhere else upstairs, and then he moved her to the basement. That same day in the evening, now we're at January 1, you remember he made that run to the store to get antiseptic cream and Band-Aids, obviously to fix the cut on his thumb. Prosecution theory was they got the cut on his thumb when he knifed Anna Walshe to death. And he also deposited one trash bag in one of the dumpsters near where he bought the salve and the Band-Aid. Prosecutor's theory was that was the rug that he had used to bring her downstairs. And remember, later in the week, he buys another rug at Home Goods. The other piece of evidence that the prosecution used to show premeditation was his telling Jem Mutlu on New Year's Eve that he had misplaced his phone. And then he claimed that the phone didn't show up again until, I believe, January 2nd. But that phone showed that there was some charging or some activity 4 or 5 times between December 31, when he said he had misplaced it, and January 2. More significantly, that phone was used to call the restaurant at which Brian Walshe had made that dinner reservation for New Year's Day and canceling it. So he couldn't possibly not have had the phone. He had to have had the phone to make the phone call, which again goes to show the intentional killing, because he gave the story about the phone December 31 before he had killed her. That was New Year's Eve. So the jury, when it was looking at that rug, clearly was focused on the prosecution's case, which I said this morning, I don't know if I said it on Friday, was a good sign for the prosecution. Why did it take as long as it took? Because it was 5 hours plus. Well, 1 hour was lunch, probably. Part of the time was also asking the question, sending the question out to the judge. I'm assuming they didn't work while they were waiting for the answer. This morning, court started late because one of the alternate jurors didn't show up. So I don't think they started until about maybe 9:20. So you subtract all that time and it wasn't a 5 hour plus verdict. And I think that what might have happened, if I had to try to reconstruct it, is that when they went into the jury room, they took a preliminary vote to see where everybody was. And I suspect most were guilty of murder one. There might have been a couple of people who were wavering. And then the jury said, well, let's go through the evidence to see where we are. And at the end of that process, if someone was wavering, they moved over to voting for premeditated murder, which is, it's my guess. I don't know, obviously, but that's what I think happened. Okay. So that's what happened today. I would say in a nutshell, but that wasn't just the nutshell. That's the total shell of what happened in the case. Brian Walshe, we've got a photo. I don't know if it's been up yet because I've been processing what I'm saying, of Brian Walshe when the verdict came in. And if we haven't shown you that, we'll show that to you now. There he is, looking very calm, not looking happy, but that was his reaction. There wasn't much more of a reaction than that. And then we've got another photo that I think you will like of Brian Walshe being led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. There he goes. Last time he's going to be wearing a suit. It looks like no, I guess he still has his tie on there, but they will be taking it off. Then the prosecutor had an impromptu press conference outside the courtroom, and I'm not going to show you the clip of it. I mean, it was pretty much pro forma, and in large part, it was the prosecutor and not Connor who did the actual prosecution, the trial prosecutor. But I do want you to hear one question and answer that came up. The trial prosecutor was asked what he thought about Brian Walshe not testifying. So that's the clip I want you to hear.
Testify? What did you want to ask him on the stand?
I don't know if I can comment on that.
You don't have
Yeah.
enough time for that.
I think that's probably better not said.
But were you surprised that he didn't? The judge was.
I think it's always up to the defendant to make that decision. I think it's the hardest decision a defendant can make. And so I'm sure he put a lot of thought into it. We were prepared that if he did testify, we had a number of questions we wanted to have answered, but we understand it's his right not to.
So, the question.
Yeah. Over the past couple of years.
Okay. And I'm sorry he didn't get a chance to ask his questions, because I would have been very happy to hear Brian Walshe answer the questions. But we're never going to be treated, and I am going to use the verb treated. We're never going to be treated to that spectacle, and I'm going to call it a spectacle because that's what I think it would have been, of Brian Walshe trying to explain away all the evidence, trying to explain away the use of the word murder when he was doing some of those Google searches, trying to explain away why he said his phone was misplaced when he used it to cancel the dinner reservation, trying to explain away the blood on the rug that had the little piece of the necklace, trying to explain away, you can fill in the blanks, because there were a lot of things he had to explain away. So that's really where we are in terms of what happened today. And I really don't have a lot more to say about it. I will take some questions if you have questions. I do want to say, I said I didn't have anything to say. I lied. The thing there, and that if you can keep that question up, I will get to it. But what I do want to say is the fact that the defense opened saying Brian Walshe would testify, and that and then going through what Brian Walshe was going to say. And I want to thank, it's hard to read, Gypsy Soul for that gift. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The fact that that happened, and you all know about it, I'm not going to do it again, but the judge said she was going to read an instruction about it. It was a very mild instruction, and I talked about it on Friday. But she also gave the prosecutor the opportunity to have some leeway in closing to refer to not what happened directly, but to make some reference to the evidence that the jury did not hear. The prosecutor did not do it. And that was, in some ways, I think, a gutsy decision. But it has inured to the benefit of the prosecution big time, because had she made any reference to it, that clearly would have been an issue on appeal. The claim would have been that invaded the province of the defense. It made it sound as though the defense had some burden, and the defense had no burden. Prosecutor didn't come near it, and so that issue is not in the case, and that's just really great. So let me see about this question now. My cousin was at the courthouse this morning. His mother was thrown out before the verdict because she had left him a note on the table. Well, you follow the rules or you don't stay in the courtroom, and it doesn't matter whether you're a bystander, a member of the media, or the mother of the defendant. She does seem to be, from all I have heard of her, an unusual person who clearly feels she has the right to march to her own drummer, no matter whether the drummer that she's marching to is going to violate a rule or 2 or 20. Okay. Oh, here's Mandy saying the same thing. Learned that his mother was thrown out of the courtroom several times throughout the trial, trying to get Brian's attention and even leaving his letter at the defense table. So she has a behavior of doing this. So I guess she can go visit him in prison now and give him, maybe not give him notes, but talk to him as much as she wants within the time frame that visitors are allowed. So she should be happy. Do I think Brian's attorney decided he couldn't in good faith question Brian on direct, seeing the proof his defense was a lie? No, I think the attorney talked Brian out of testifying because it would have been quite the show and it could not have helped. I suspect that now Brian believes that the attorney gave him bad advice and that he could have explained his way out of anything. But I really think, generally speaking, a defense lawyer does not put the defendant on the stand. The only reason why many of us, and certainly I, thought that Brian Walshe would testify is because of the opening that announced he was going to testify and then ran through the evidence or what it is that Brian Walshe was going to say, which the defense attorney had no right to say if he knew that Brian Walshe was not going to take the stand. So I was sure that Brian Walshe was going to take the stand. He did not, as we know. And I think the prosecutor and the judge both believed that the defense lawyer acted in good faith, that he thought Brian Walshe was going to take the stand. But then as a lawyer, he did his best to persuade him not to because it would not have been in the best interests of the defense. Okay, Mandy. When Brian told Jim his cell phone was quote unquote lost while Anna was still alive, proved he had a plan and the lost cell phone was part of it. That's how I got to murder one. My thoughts. That's exactly the case that the prosecutor made about this, that this was part of showing premeditation, and it may have been the biggest part of showing premeditation, that because there would be no reason to make up a story about that phone otherwise, at least none that I could see. Okay, there's the Gypsy soul that I had thanked, and I'll thank you again because I'm grateful. So I don't mind doing it twice because I think it's really terrific that you did it at all. Have any of the jurors spoken? Not that I know of, and I would be surprised if they were out there talking this soon. Can his mother be charged? You have to ask what. I used to tell my law students this all the time. If you want to say charged, what is the crime you're charging her with? And unless you can find a crime to charge her with, you can't charge her. Okay. How do I think the jurors will react when they find out about Brian Walshe's early pleas? I think they're going to be more persuaded that they made the right decision. I think it will be, to the extent they're doing any soul searching because they feel a little queasy about sending somebody to prison for the rest of their life, although they don't know that for sure. It's the judge that does the sentencing. Finding out about those pleas will only, I think, reinforce their view that they made the right decision. Okay, let's see. Are there other questions? I don't see any coming up, but I'll wait a second or two or three. Well, that question has come up, but that's the same question that I answered and it's showing up again. So you don't want me to hear me answer it again, so I won't do that. We'll see if there are any other questions. Do I think, here's the question from Coffee Lovin' Momo. Do I think his mother will speak at sentencing? That's really a good question. And I don't know. Often the family members or friends of the defendant speak at sentencing. And in fact, if you saw the video that we just put out this week, I compared Sarah Boone's sentencing hearing to to Donna Adelson's sentencing hearing. And in that, I talked about what you do at sentencing, what you're supposed to do at sentencing, what you should not do at sentencing. And one of the things you do at sentencing is family members talk about the defendant and how much they love them and worthwhile they are and other kinds of things. So we may well hear from her, and we will get a better feel for how much she marches to a different drummer if she speaks. This question is, do I think Brian will speak at sentencing? My guess is yes, because I think he would like to tell his story, but he runs, I don't know that he runs much of a risk. If he testifies, if he speaks at sentencing and then his conviction is by some miracle, I don't mean miracle in a good sense, overturned, and then there's a new trial, the prosecutor can use anything he says at sentencing to impeach. I still think he's going to do it, but I don't know. Josephine Santamora gave me a super sticker. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I don't know what a super sticker is, but I love them. I hope somebody's going to have to explain to me what it is. Shanta, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And happy holidays to you too. You can see all my Christmas things back there. You should see my upstairs. My mother was so much into Christmas that in the little, where the doorknob is, where the keyhole is, she would stick sprigs of holly in the keyhole, because anywhere she could find to put something that was Christmas, she put something that was Christmas. I don't know whether to say as good as her or as bad as her, but I do have Christmas all over the place. I think whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or another holiday that you celebrate, that we should celebrate the holidays. We should celebrate the occasions when we can, because you never know what tomorrow will bring. So whether it's birthdays or anniversaries or a holiday, whether it's Thanksgiving or even Halloween, I think when there's an opportunity to celebrate, we should grab it with both hands. Okay, who do I think will be most impactful at sentencing? You hope Jen speaks. I guessed earlier today, when I was still doing the co-show with the Joel Waldman, that I guess that maybe Alyssa Kirby, who testified, and Jem Mutlu might testify, because they both were clearly very, very close friends of Anna. I don't know whether Jem will actually testify. I mean, he was so nervous and so uncomfortable on the stand, and he was clearly having so much trouble telling his story. And he was friends with not only Donna, but he was also friends with Brian Walshe. So I don't know whether he is going to feel able to do it, but I agree with you. It would be nice to hear him untethered, because at sentencing, the evidence rules don't apply, and he would be able to tell us what he felt and the inferences and conclusions and characterizations of how Anna was acting and how Brian was. If I were on the bench, how much weight would I give to victim impact statements and sentencing decision? Maybe when you're sort of on the line, I think I know I said once, victim impact statements used to be very controversial, because the feeling was that if you came from a stable home, if you had a steady job, if you were a so-called pillar in the community, at sentencing, you would have a lot of people come in and talk about what a worthwhile person you were, how you could be rehabilitated, how much good you could do for society. And if you didn't have that background, there might be no one or very few people to come in and talk for you. So the feeling was it gave an undue advantage in a sentencing decision to people who were really well off or better placed. We've come a long way, and I think every jurisdiction now allows them, although they have different views about the latitude that can be done in sentencing. Trying to think which trial I saw where the rules were that the victim could not, or the person giving the victim's impact statement could not look or speak directly to the defendant. In Brian Kohlberger's case, I think they did speak directly to him. So it varies. But I think judges are still a little a little wary about how much weight to give. But I think, it's emotional, and judges are people. And if you get a mother or a child, talking about how much of how much value that person brought to their lives, how much they're going to miss them, how difficult it's going to be to get through the day. At Koberger's sentencing hearings, one of the young women who had been in the house and was not killed talked about all the guilt she had, survivor's guilt, and she was seeking psychiatric help. So I think that certainly can make a difference going up. And in the right case, if the defendant really came from a really unfortunate home background, had a lot of strikes against her, had tried things and had been thwarted, you might have in Sarah Boone's sentencing hearing, a psychiatric expert testified about the way about her psyche, and maybe whether she could be rehabilitated. It could make an impact. In a case like this, I can't imagine it will have any effect on the judge going down. And I don't even think it's going to have any effect on her going up, because I think she's going to do the maximum and give him 20 years on the moving a body illegally. I'm paraphrasing what that crime is, because when you hear the name of the crime, it doesn't even seem to fit what he did. But okay. You may have missed this, but did Brian have siblings? I don't know for sure. It doesn't sound like, it doesn't appear that he had any siblings with his mother. Whether his father remarried, that I don't know. Did I notice that Brian shook his head after hearing murder one? I noticed that he moved his head, yes. Okay, Mandy. This is my new favorite YouTube channel. How sweet you are. And you also gave me a gift. Thank you. Thanks so much for all the work I put into it. Yeah, well, it was fun. I like doing this, especially when I get comments saying that what I do is helpful to understanding how a trial works and what's going on. It's really, it's really very gratifying to me too. I'm only geeks out when Professor Jo reads my questions. Such a huge fan. This is coming from coffee loving Momo. Mama, Momo of 3. I missed Mom of 3. Sorry. I should have gotten that. Coffee loving Mom of 3. I like that. I can't answer that because I don't know whether anybody freaks out. You have to hear that from other people in the chat. Okay. Laney B 58. What are my thoughts on how there was no reaction from him on the verdict? There was very little, reaction from him from start to finish at this trial. I think he may like being able to project an image of being unflappable, and so that's what you got today. Clearly, it had to have an impact on him. I mean, there's no way you could hear that you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison with no chance of getting out and it not having an impact. Okay. Oh my God, it's my elementary school librarian. Who? Me? I don't know. Well, I was never an elementary school librarian, just so you know. Other questions? When he gets sentenced on the federal case, does he go to federal prison first? I think the state murder conviction will take priority, in part because, it's the more serious crime. It's the longer crime. He'll never actually serve on the federal sentence. And the judge could, if she wanted, make this sentence concurrent with the federal, which would mean the federal would, would never occur. It wouldn't be consecutive. If it were consecutive after he served his life sentence, and then 20 years after his life is over, then he could serve the extra 37 or 39 months. Okay. Rissa 25 was waiting for my recaps of the case since you were working when the verdict came in. What a privilege to have you now in your own channel. It's a privilege for me too. So thank you very much. This is coming from Another Opinion. This is the first courtroom I have seen where the defense table is behind the prosecution table. They're normally side by side. Is it specific to Boston? I don't know. I didn't watch any of the Karen Reed trial, so I can't tell you whether the defense and prosecution tables were, in a line or whether one was in front of the other, but I noticed it too. It struck me a little because it seems to me that you would want, if you could, to give both sets of lawyers an unfettered view of the witnesses on the stand. And if you're sitting behind the prosecution, you don't really get the same view. Plus, I would be a little concerned if I had notebooks and things out at the prosecution table and the defense was right behind me, that maybe something I was doing could be observed by the lawyers behind me. So it would make me a little uncomfortable. Okay. I wonder, this is from R. Sherby. I wonder if he will still need to pay the restitution. Yes, he will still be under the obligation to pay, but whether he will be in a position to pay is a different question. Okay. Calamar Plexi 2775. Can Brian Walshe use honest money to pay assets or his debt? No. I'm saying this emphatically, although I've never seen Massachusetts law on this. But in every jurisdiction I know of, the perpetrator of the crime of murder cannot benefit from the crime. Now, sometimes that's not a whole lot of help, because when they're not convicted, they can certainly use the proceeds to pay for their defense. And those statutes don't prevent that, because you don't have someone who's guilty of the crime yet. But he's guilty now. So whatever money there is out there, he should not be able to get his hands on. Okay. June 1031, great insights as always. Do I think the prosecution did? How do I think the prosecution did? You found their timeline not crystal clear. I agree with you. I think they could have done a better job of emphasizing the timeline and connecting it a little more. They did it, but my feeling was just emphasize it a little more, and they did not. And also, I said this morning, I would have liked a little more oomph, maybe a sarcastic throwaway here and there, like he was so much in love with his wife that he looked at her in bed dead and decided the answer was to chop up her body. Things like that. And they played it really straight, none of that. But they were successful, so the jury was able to follow the presentation of the case, and they certainly were thorough in presenting the case. And the prosecutor, when they did that impromptu press conference, said that they believed that they were going to put all that evidence in front of the jury. It didn't matter that Brian Walshe had pled to a couple of things. They stuck to, we're going to give the jury all the evidence, and it clearly worked. Okay. Beth Gaither. In cases like this, who tells the children the verdict? Is there some kind of standard procedure in place with the social worker? I don't think there's a standard procedure. I think it would vary from jurisdiction. If there were a family member with custodial authority, the other parent, then that parent would be in charge of what to tell the children, how to tell the children, and when to tell the children. Remember, in the Adelson case, Wendy talked about thinking about how she was going to tell the children, and she told them either that, I think that night, didn't have to consult with anybody else. She could have asked for a victim's, somebody from the prosecutor's office and victim services to go with her. She might have sought out a rabbi or a psychologist. I don't think she did. But if there is somebody in that position, that person certainly clearly is in charge. In this case, with the grandmother in Serbia, the other grandmother being the mother of the person who killed Anna, and also having some problems of her own, and was not granted custody of the 3 kids when she asked, I don't think she'd have anything to say about when to tell when the children should have been told. The grandmother in Serbia wouldn't have been in a position to do it. There's an aunt in Canada. I'm not sure she would have been in a position to do it. So it probably was somebody from Child Services who actually talked to them, and I don't know who would have been with them. Although Brian Walshe might have told them before he was arrested. We don't know. At least I don't know. Do I know what case I will follow next? You've learned so much already. Oh, thank you so much. I don't know. There are a lot of them out there, and I've been, thinking about a couple. I should probably decide in the next few days, because if so, I'm going to want to do some preliminary, probably a couple of preliminary videos to get all of us up to speed. And you may be up to speed on all of them, but I would want to do a video so I am sure I'm up to speed for a trial. But I would really like to do another one. Clearly, I like watching the trials. I like offering comments to the trials, and I like when you like what I'm doing. So it's a win-win-win for me. That question went by too fast, so I don't know what it was. Okay. NP Queen, I can't pronounce it. Richens case in Colorado. Am I going? No, I think that's being live streamed, and that's one of the ones that I'm thinking about commenting on, but I won't be in Colorado. I can't do both. I would love to be in the courtroom to watch live, but if I'm in the courtroom watching live, I can't at the same time comment. So, it's a question about which way I want to go. And right now, I like doing the commenting. So, Karen Leety, thanks so much for becoming a YouTube member. That's just great. Okay, other questions? All right. If not, I have things in the way of announcements now. Tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, I'm going to start. You're seeing a different look on my page. I don't know, because I don't know what the look is. I'll check and see what's happening. I'm going to start doing a Tuesday and Friday night live at 5 o'clock. And what I'm thinking the pattern will be, and I'll see how it works, is to have a guest on Tuesday night, and then Friday night do something else. And my guest, my first guest will be somebody who's a contributing editor to the Boston Magazine, Wyndham Lewis, who's been on the Brian Walshe case since the beginning, and has a lot of insights and a lot of background information, and probably things that I don't know about the case. And we're going to talk about what happened in the case, and some maybe the ancillary things. He may know more about Brian Walshe's mother, about the family relationship of Brian Walshe and his father who disowned him, and those sorts of things. So I think he's going to be a really interesting guest. So I hope you will join. Wednesday is the sentencing, and the judge said 9 a.m. So I'm assuming that's what we're doing. So I will be joint streaming with Joel Waldman of Surviving the Survivor again at 9. I will do a recap after we hear the sentencing and the victim impact statements and anything that the defense presents, and the arguments about what the sentence should be on the other counts. There's no argument on murder 1. If we finish early enough, I'll probably do it as I did today, early to mid-afternoon. If it goes most of the day, then I'll do it at 5, which is where I was doing most of these recaps. So that would be probably not at 5 now that I said that, no later than 4 probably, because I'm really excited that on Wednesday night, I'm going to be a guest on Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo. And if you have not seen that show, I really recommend it to you. She does recaps on trials and other legal issues, and she has the best sense of humor of anyone I've heard on a channel anywhere. She has a way of capturing things that really, sometimes it just brings out how ridiculous things are. She just is wonderful. So I'm just so thrilled that I'm going to be on with her. And we are going to be jointly streaming that, so you can come on through Prof Jo Explains to watch that Wednesday night. And then Friday night at 5, where I'm going to do my second show. What I'm going to do, and this is kind of a pivot from criminal trials and covering criminal issues, and I'm going to see whether there's enough interest in my doing this more, or at least regularly. I have a chair in constitutional law, so I'd like to do a little of that, of how the law works, how the system works outside of criminal trial. And when I'm going, Grazia, Elena Bonilla Bod. Grazia. What she said there, for those of you who didn't say it, was She likes my channel a lot. So what I'm going to do on Friday night is birthright citizenship. That's a case that the Supreme Court of the United States will be hearing. And the question is whether you automatically are a U.S. citizen if you're born in the United States. And some of the media reports make it seem like a simple question, and they make it seem like a conservative court might, just bag the simple question and say no. And I would like to talk a little about how the media covers the courts, because I don't like this, it's like here you're on one side and you're on the other and you're going to battle. And it doesn't depend on what the legal issues are. It doesn't depend on what your judicial philosophy is. You just vote the way the president who appointed you wants you to vote. And I think that is grossly understated. I wouldn't say that there isn't any of that hasn't happened through time, but it's grossly overstated. So I want to talk a little about that. And then I want to do the background of that, the issues in that case. So when the Supreme Court does decide it, and there'll be a lot of media coverage of it, I no doubt, you'll have a pretty good picture of what was at issue, and a better feel for whether you think the decision was right or wrong. And, as to what side of the argument you come out on, that's up to you. But I would like to take the time to at least present both sides fairly and to the extent you can do it in an hour and a half completely. So that's Friday. So that's what's coming up. Then on Saturday, there'll be a release of another video that I did. I believe it will be another one on the issues that may come up in Donald Adelson's appeal. And it will be released on Friday for members. They'll get an early preview, and then later it will be released more generally. So that's a lot. Look at all that. So that's this week. Then the other thing I want to do is I've gotten a lot of comments on her, and that's a cap and gown. It's got you can't see the hood in the back, but that's, what faculty at commencement for a PhD or for a JD program, and of course, since I'm a lawyer, that would be where I would do it. And I think I may have said I plan to decorate her, and I'm calling her because it's my cap and gown, and I'm a her or she. And I plan to decorate her for the seasons. You can see right now she's wearing Christmas bells, and you may not be able to see that, but that's a baseball cap, but it's got a Christmas tree and it's all sequined. But I thought it might be fun to name her, so that I actually have a name for her. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, why don't I just have you all name her? So that's what we're going to do. I hope you will find it fun to do it. I do not know yet when we will, start the time frame for when you can send in names. I can't tell you right now to whom you will send in your suggested names, but I know it will be coming, and I thought I'd tell you in advance since I'm so pleased with my idea. And you might just start thinking about, what names you might actually suggest, because I think it would be better if she had a name. So I could refer to her as Susie. That's not a name we're going to do, obviously, or whatever. So, and we'll have some, I think, parameters in terms of the name. No men's, and first of all, no male names because she's a she, but maybe a couple of other things. So hopefully you think that's a fun idea. So I'm going to be, I think, on a show coming up. I think it's a broadcast show, but I'm not sure. Massachusetts Live, maybe not, but in any event, I'm going to be interviewed there. But what I'm going to do now, last time on Friday, I gave you a hint of a Christmas song or holiday song that was matched to a Shakespeare play. You may recall I did Romeo and Juliet, and then I did a little of Julius Caesar. I'm going to do Julius Caesar now, and I may actually give you my terrible singing voice because I'm not sure with this one I can avoid doing it, although I may try. And this is Julius Caesar. It's another play that I think, or story that I think most of you are familiar with. This is Julius Caesar, who, makes himself emperor of Rome after he had come in on a plank to be a democratic leader. He and Mark Antony, who was his close friend at one point, were no longer friends. They both had let us say, a relationship with Cleopatra. And so that's sort of the background of the play. And oh, I see there are two more new members, Mandy and Mandy. Oh, it's just once, but it showed up twice. I was going to say, Mandy, I don't think you can, it's like murder. One victim, you could only have one murder. I mean, it'd be nice if you want to have two memberships. I'd love it, but I really think probably you only want one. Okay, so and this is done to deck the halls with boughs of holly. So if you don't want to hear my terrible singing, in a minute you may want to sign off. But otherwise, you can find me on Facebook at Prof Jo Explains, or no, I think it's Prof Jo Explains. And you can reach me on Gmail at askprofjo@gmail.com. The Patreon page, where there are no ads and we will be doing some other things, will be up and running shortly. And of course, we're going to be doing some things for members only. And I already told you of one that we started, which is the video is going to show up on the members only, be an opportunity for members only before everybody else. But there will be more. We're in the throes of working some of these things out. But we will do it. Okay, so anybody who doesn't want to hear this singing voice, now you should say ciao, Prof Jo, and sign off. But here we go. Dip our hands in blood of Caesar, fa la 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 la, la 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 la. Show Rome what we did to please her, fa la 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 la, la 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 la. Tell them this assassination, fa la la, fa la la, la la la. Let me stop here. This was Mark Antony killing Julius Caesar. So that's the assassination they're talking about. Was purely to preserve the nation. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. Hold our bloodied blades before us. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. Make the people all adore us. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. Tell them Caesar was ambitious. Fa la 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 la, la la la. And his death was fair, not vicious. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. Mark Antony was his friend, and the killing was vicious. They all used knives, and there were a crowd of them that each took a turn. Antony has riled the masses. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. Made us look like jealous asses. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. With his skillful oratory, fa la la, fa la la, la la la. He has undermined our story, fa la 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 la, la 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 la. And that reference is to a famous line in Shakespeare where Mark Antony starts out a speech saying, "I come here to praise Caesar, not to bury him." And then he goes on to rile the masses against Caesar. It's a speech that's used in debate classes and classes on persuasive language, just to show how you can do it. So anyway, that is Julius Caesar done to, and it's not called deck the halls. This one is called, and it's a little gross, dip our hands. And clearly they're talking about blood. So anyway, I don't know. Somebody just said, who is it? Grimm said that's a good way to get into the Christmas spirit. I don't know whether hearing a song about the murder of a government leader in a particularly bloody fashion is necessarily the way to get into the Christmas spirit, but I take your meaning. So anyway, that's it. I enjoyed talking to you today. I hope you will, if you have the chance to hear the sentencing on Wednesday, that you will. I would really love it if you listen to the show tomorrow night with our speaker, Wyndham Lewis, who I think will have really good expertise. And again, Wednesday night at 6 with gossip, rumor, and innuendo. If you have not experienced her, it would be terrific if you experience her with me coming in on my channel. But even if not, she's really worth a look. So ciao a tutti, ciao profers, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow. So long.